Oh yeah. Success. Show my screen. Perfect. Good to go. Okay, so now as normal. Yeah, now as normal. Sorry for the hold up.
Okay, I hope everybody can see us. If you can't, then can you maybe just let us know through the chat box, but we're assuming that you can. So as we said before, welcome to UK Sports Association My Sport, My Voice Engage workshops. This is the first time that we've done it as a webinar, so it's a learning experience for everybody, especially for Robert and myself. So great to have you all here, and we're now just going to move into the workshop properly. Okay, what we're going to do, we'll present for about an hour. There's some material that Robert and I would like to share with you, and it will be quite interactive, both with Robert and myself and with yourselves. And then we have half an hour or so at the end for some questions. So whilst we don't want mobile phones going off in the background, as you can see on your screen, we'd love you to tweet and to use your Facebooks to let everybody in your area know what's going on today. You'll also see something on the right called Change One Thing. Robert's going to speak to you a bit more about that later, but what that is about is pledging to change one thing that will make the inclusion of athletes with a learning disability easier for everybody concerned. Who is the UK Sports Association? Again, on your screen you will see that we are the only organisation working exclusively with people with a learning disability in high performance sport. So what that means in the United Kingdom, it's the National Disability Sports Organisation. Great Britain as a country, so the 4 home nations who make up UKSA are in membership of INUS, which is the International Federation for Athletes with an Intellectual Disability. That organisation is the organisation that is the pathway into the Paralympic Games for our athletes, our elite athletes with a learning disability. So as such, UK Sports Association is recognised by UK Sport. It's a member of the British Paralympic Association, and it's part of that pathway to the Paralympic Games and the INUS Global Games. It is a registered charity, so completely reliant on donors, sponsors and investment. And the one thing that's quite interesting is it's different to Special Olympics. Special Olympics has a very important part to play in the participation element of sport for people with a learning disability. UKSA and INUS are the high performance wings of that. Today, in the short time that we have, what we do hope is that you will leave having, I'm sure you all have positive perceptions anyway, or I'm sure you wouldn't have signed in, but perhaps some of your perceptions might alter, change, become more positive of people with a learning disability both in and out of sport, and that you will be part of a team going forward under the banner of Spirit of 2012 and UKSA My Sport, My Voice, to lead powerful, well-informed discussions so that we can influence others in society in the same way. You'll hear Robert's story today, and we'll do that with a question and answer. And I hope that challenges perhaps some of your thoughts about some of the elite athletes that we work with a learning disability. I know every time I hear their story, I'm just blown away by some of the things that they say. For this group of athletes, communication is absolutely key. So we will have a short time on looking at communication, how to make it more effective in that inclusive practice, and how its benefits will translate to other areas of your business and organisation. And I think we'd like you to leave knowing that, to be confident that small changes might not cost money, but they can make a huge difference. And I think Robert's going to say a wee bit more about that at the end. The principles that underpin the workshop, yes, we're talking about athletes with a learning disability, but we want to focus on ability. rather than disability. What can these athletes do? We want to make sure that inclusion isn't a tick box, that we influence and deliver good practice, which then supports the inclusion of people with learning disability, not just in sport, but within society and the workplace. That our communications are appropriate, confident and effective, and at the end, that when we finish this webinar, you know where to go to get further information to make those changes. Okay, Robert's now going to tell you a wee bit about My Sport, My Voice. Over to you, Robert.
Okay. It's a project funded by the Spirit of 2012, which is 13 athlete ambassadors, and I'm one of the ambassadors. Also with 11 athlete reps, and also 3 key objectives.
Thanks, Robert. That's great. The athlete ambassadors are spread right across the country, and you'll hear from Bethany Firth, who's one of the Northern Ireland ambassadors later. The reps support the athlete ambassadors in the workshops. We don't have any reps with us today, but they are athletes who are learning to be ambassadors in the future. You'll see there's 3 key objectives that underpin the project: to promote athletes with a learning disability in all areas of their lives, to educate everybody around them as to what these athletes can achieve, their skills, their abilities, and to enable everyone to move forward in a much more inclusive environment. So that's a wee bit about the project. Okay, what we're going to do now, we're going to start the workshop proper, and you'll see on your screen there's a quote. People only see what they're prepared to see. And the reason that quote's there is because we often find that our opinions and our beliefs are based on our experiences. So I think we're going to do a couple of short exercises to look at how our perceptions and experience influence our behaviours and our opinions. The key thing to remember, yes, we're talking about athletes with a learning disability, but actually every single person, you all included, we are all individuals. We all function in different ways. We all have skills and abilities, and we all have things that hold us back a little bit. So remember, people, Robert, who's sitting next to me, a person with a learning disability is a person first, and their learning disability comes after that. You will see it's a very hidden disability, so it's not always obvious until perhaps you start to communicate with the person. It inhibits how a person learns. It will slow the pace of learning down. So in terms of performing everyday functions, communication and understanding, perhaps it might take someone a little bit longer. It can affect social and living skills, and you will hear from some of these things when we speak to Robert later. And for many of us, these are things that we take for granted. So it's a slowing down of the ability to take in information cognitively. It certainly doesn't mean that a person can't learn. It just means that they maybe take a little bit longer. Okay, we're now going to show you a video from Bethany Firth. Now, Bethany, for those of you in Northern Ireland who don't know her, is one of your Paralympic swimmers. We believe that she has been selected for the Paralympics in Rio, so she's an elite athlete, very well known within disability sports circles within your country. So we're now going to hear from Bethany. She's so busy preparing for Rio that she couldn't actually join us today. So here she is in a video. I'm just going to have a look and check that we can get Bethany on the video. Ooh.
What's going on?
No. Do we have a problem with the video earlier on? We couldn't get to it, but I just assumed that.
Okay. We may not be able to show the video just because it's having a bit of a mare, but we will at the end show it at the end or give you the link in the follow-up email. Sorry about that. Oop.
Robert's video.
How do I?
Okay. Yeah, everything's great when it works. So, as Amber has said, we will send you that in as a link. But we've got Robert with us today, and hopefully, with a bit of luck, then we'll be able to see Robert's video.
Did that one work really?
Yeah, worked on mine. Okay, the saving grace with this one is that we do have Robert with us, and Robert was videoed in Manchester just talking about the impact of the project and what it's done for him. So Robert, do you want to tell us a wee bit about what My Sport, My Voice has done for you?
I think My Sport, My Voice for me has given me a massive boosting confidence both in the sport and also outside the sport as well to begin with. Cool.
Yeah, and I think from the start of the project to now, what skills have you learned?
I think I feel a better communicator and find it easier to talk to people now.
Yes, absolutely. And in terms of the project and you being involved in it for 2 years, what do you feel about it coming to an end and then perhaps going forward again? How do you feel about us coming to the end of it now?
I don't know what to think, to be honest, but I think all I can say is I was very proud and pleased to be involved with the project in the first place and to be one of the ambassadors and what I've done in the programme too.
And is it something that you would like to take forward, these sorts of skills that you've learned in the future?
I think I would, yeah, because with them gives me a better in the future, can help me in the future later on, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's more or less what Robert was saying in his video, and perhaps it's better coming straight from Robert. What we're going to speak about now is a little bit about Robert's journey. So on your screen you can see that Robert is a very talented athlete, that he has represented his country at INUS events. Do you remember what event that is, Robert, with you holding the Great Britain flag?
Yeah, that one would be in Manchester 2012 at the World Indoors.
Okay, tell us a wee bit about what you achieved in Manchester in 2012.
Well, in that time, that was my very first time in the squad, and we competed in 3 events: 400, 4x2 relay, and also the 4x4 relay.
And give us the results. How did you get on?
First event was the 400 metres, the individual 4, and I won a silver medal.
Wow! And what did you win in the relays?
In the 4x2 relay, won a gold medal in the 4x2, and that was a really great moment.
So that best in the world, 4x2 indoors, the Great Britain team.
Definitely. Yeah.
Wow, that's absolutely fantastic. I think you'll appreciate from that conversation that Robert is an exceptional athlete representing his country. I think what we'd like to spend a bit of time exploring now with Robert is how we got to that stage, because as you all know, what you see at the end product is only part of what the journey is. So, Robert, tell us about, you're a very good athlete. So I know that part of your athletics, for example, it's a very technical sport that you do, and some of that technical aspect is using blocks. So how did you learn to use blocks?
Well, when I first began to use blocks, I'd obviously seen athletes before me use them before, and I've had help from athletes at Red Star and even further afield, and the coaches as well.
Yeah.
But first used to struggle with blocks to begin with, but as the weeks went on, like got more used to them, and also people, athletes and coaches included, were helping with my measurement,
Yes.
like measurement blocks, and then going over the measurement and the training with blocks continuously over and over until I was satisfied with a certain measurement, like using the tape measure. And as I said before, using the tape measure helped me with the blocks tremendously. Then worked out a satisfactory measurement, and then once I'd done that, it was just a case of using steps,
a bit like tic-tac, just measuring it out with your feet.
With the front and back block, and also the front metal part at the front.
Yeah. I don't know much about using blocks, and the way Robert's explained it, I think what comes through is the fact that you're very good using blocks. Technically, you know what you're doing. But am I right in saying it took you a wee bit longer to learn?
It did, yeah.
And that you learned more by doing, actually doing it yourself.
Myself, yeah, but with the help of coaches and even athletes, yeah.
Yeah, and so at the start of a race now, can you just go and set up your blocks and know exactly what you're doing?
Using the blocks now is no problem to me now, because I know my measurement now, and I know, as I said before, I know how many steps I need to take in. And if I didn't work out, I can always take my tape measure out and measure the blocks again.
So you've got a backup then if it doesn't work. So take us to the start of, say, a 400-metre race. So that's one lap of the track.
Yeah.
So you're there, you're on the start line, you've got your blocks set up because you've practiced. What else are you thinking about on that start line?
Well, with the blocks is no problem to me at this stage. Now with the blocks measurement settled, it's just a question of the 400-metre strategy, which I know
from working with the coach.
Working with the coach, yeah.
It is a very technical event. It's one lap of the track, and we all know that you can't run flat out for one lap of the track. So how do you remember what your strategy is?
In the week leading up to a 400, it's just a question of like getting the right training in to begin with, and plus as well talking over the race with my coach, and maybe not just my coach, but maybe with other people.
Yeah.
And just talking about the race, how am I going to run it, what's the strategy going to be, and plus and also I've had advice from 400-metre runners.
Yes.
To just give me some advice on what helped them, and just taking all that into consideration. Just a question of what's the right method for me, and once I got that worked out, just a question of going out to perform the 400.
I think when we were chatting earlier, Robert said something quite interesting about his racing, and that was in the week before you go over it and over it and over it.
Yeah.
Is that right? Is that with your coach?
With the coach, yeah, and I think with that it's very reassuring, because doing that helps me prepare for my 400 better and less time to be worried or even nervous, which is a massive boost.
Yes, I know. I mean, I can't imagine what it must be like standing on the start line of an international race. So, how have you coped with nerves and with that situation?
I think as far as feeling nervous goes, I think what helps me is I don't actually think about the race itself or the competition, depending what it is, obviously. But instead, I think what I've done, think what I've achieved, how hard I've worked to get where I am. I think that's a really big help to me.
And who has supported you in that then? Who's helped you to get to that stage?
My coach has been a massive support to me, and also my parents have been a big help to me as well.
Yeah.
If not.
And I know Tommy, Robert's coach. So what is it that Tommy's done with you? How has he worked with you to get you to being such a good athlete? What things has he done to help you?
Well, coaching one thing, and also having long chats with him, that's really helped a lot. Yeah, give me a good belief in races.
Right. So what I'm hearing is that Tommy spends a lot of time with you.
Yeah.
A lot of one-to-one time. just talking through things, making sure you understand. Would that be right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. So I think what you can see there is that we have with us today a very talented athlete. I know Robert when he first started, and I think what has come through is that relationship between Robert's parents and his coach and Robert himself, and that patience and taking time and finding ways for Robert to learn has allowed Robert to progress to achieve some of his goals in athletics. So I think there's some key points for everybody there to take out. I think for yourselves, just have a think at some point, has Robert's story surprised you? Robert's disability probably isn't that obvious. So I think, has anything changed? Have you thought of anything now in your own area that you might think, well, now that I know that and I've heard Robert, what might I do differently? And again, starting to think about changing one thing in your own environment. Has anything now come to mind that you might think, yeah, I might just change that now? So just a short reflection on that. Okay, we'll move on. I think Robert and I are going to give you some facts now. So I think, first of all, do you know that within the UK, approximately 1.5 million people are registered as having a learning disability? Robert, you've got a couple of quite interesting facts for us as well.
Yes. And also, did you know that about 200 babies are born with a learning disability every week? And also, did you know that 75% of GPs have received no training to help them treat people with a learning disability?
I don't know about you, but I found certainly that last fact that Robert read out quite astounding, that within the general practitioner population, only more than 75% have not received training. And I think if you think what is now coming through loud and clear from Robert is that communication is absolutely key, then it's so much about how we communicate with people with learning disabilities. So I hope that somewhere, we hope that statistic changes. Okay, here's Robert again. And I think what we're going to look at now, I'm going to ask Robert some questions, not so much about his athletics, but what Robert's athletics has done for him in the wider context of his life. So Robert and I will have a conversation now, and I think, again, if you have any questions for Robert at the end of this, we'll take them at the end. But Robert, we're going to ask you some questions. How did you first get into athletics?
Well, first heard of Red Star Athletics Club through a friend of mine who was a member of Red Star before me, and he recommended Red Star to me, so I decided to give it a go. Okay, now Red Star Athletics Club is a club in Glasgow that is specifically for people of all disabilities. But tell me, Robert, who do you race for now? Well, I still race for Red Star today, and as well as Red Star, I race for another club called Shettleston Harriers. Now, is Shettleston Harriers a club for people with disability? It's a mainstream club, but there's people with learning disabilities who are members of the club. Okay, so one of them, yeah. Yeah, you are. So I think what's interesting about that, again, is, Robert, you started in athletics in quite a safe environment. I did, yeah. Yeah, and were you comfortable in that environment? I was, yeah. Yeah. And then you moved into a mainstream club. I did. And how did you feel moving into that mainstream club? Well, it was a new experience for me because it was the fact it was a mainstream club, and plus is and experience at Red Star actually helped you move into mainstream. I feel it has, because it's really given me a good start and something to strive for. Yeah. So again, I think inclusion, yes, it's a great thing to aim for, but I think what Robert has said there is he needed to learn the sport, be comfortable in that environment before he moved through into mainstream. And I think you were telling me you've got a race for Shettleston on Sunday. Next week, well, if it does go ahead, it will be in Aberdeen in a league match. Yeah, for Shettleston Harriers. So again, that's great.
What was it about athletics that you really liked?
I think because I've enjoyed because I always like running, and
Yes.
always knew I had what it'd take to be a fast runner, and athletics seemed like the best sport for me.
Yes, and I think it's quite an individual sport, isn't it? Do you prefer that to a team sport?
I think I do, to be honest, because as I said in one video before, I think in athletics, because it's an individual sport. If when it goes right, it's all down to yourself. Hard work and training and commitment, and it's yourself that's got you where you are.
Yes, I think that's a very important part. When did you realise that actually I could be quite good at this?
I think it was when the very first time I was in the Scotland athletics squad.
Right. Okay.
Because when I got into that, it was then I knew I can really go further. It's just taking it the next step as it comes.
Yes. I think the coaches always saw you had a lot of talent, and I think that's great. What do you think is your greatest achievement? So let's take athletics first. What moment in athletics are you most proud of?
I think, as I said before, winning the gold medal in the World Indoor.
Yeah.
I think that would be the highlight, I think.
And is there anything else outside of athletics that you're really proud of within your other life? Is there anything that you've done, a big challenge that you've overcome?
Only recently I did my theory test, driving theory test, and
Wow.
I passed the first time.
That is fantastic. I didn't know that, so that is absolutely fantastic. Congratulations. So are you really hoping that you're going to learn to drive then? And,
yeah. Passed my theory test, so just a question of finding the time to put the actual driving test in itself.
Going back to what you said before about athletics giving you confidence and about this project giving you confidence, could you see yourself a few years ago having the confidence to take that theory driving test?
I couldn't see myself having the confidence to do it then, but I knew at the time that sometime later I would gain that confidence to do it, so that was a big help.
Has athletics and perhaps being an ambassador helped you with that?
I think it has helped me a little bit, but I think just focusing one thing differently at a time.
Yeah.
That's a big help too.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know you've spoken to me a wee bit before about where you were at school and you're now looking for some courses at college. Can you think of any real challenges that you've had to face through in your life where you've struggled but you've got through?
I think school would be one thing. The fact that I know I'm not alone in that respect, but the fact that I've got a learning disability was one barrier itself, and it was very difficult to live with.
Explain that a wee bit more. So how did that affect you at school? Was it with other pupils? Was it in the classroom? How did it affect you, Robert?
I think other people in the class thing, but even though they've got the same thing that I've had, but it helps me a little bit, but really struggling to maybe taking my time a bit more than somebody who actually doesn't have a learning difficulty. Found that a bit difficult, maybe a bit frustrating at the time.
Yes, and how did you deal with that, Robert?
I think when having that, even despite what people said about a learning difficulty, like it takes more time to understand. But then I thought, what opportunities can this provide? Yeah,
were you a bit worried about the future then and what you're going to be able to do?
Yeah. What I was able to do or what I was able not to do.
So I think that's a really strong statement to make about how worried you were. So in terms of being an athlete now and being an athlete ambassador, how confident do you feel about the future now and your ability to do things?
I feel a lot better and more upbeat in both an ambassador and as an athlete. Look even more forward to it now.
Yeah, and I think again, Robert is making some really strong statements here about being allowed the opportunity to achieve, being given that time to achieve, and how that has increased your confidence. And the knock-on effect of that has been Robert telling us today that he's passed his theory driving test and he's hoping to be able to drive and take yourself to races perhaps in the future. So just going on, just the last question. What are your dreams and your visions for the future, Robert? Let's fast forward 2 or 3 years. What would you like to be doing?
Still be training, competing as hard as I can, and competing at the top level for as long as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And don't know about maybe in 2 or 3 years' time, but maybe even further afield, maybe take a interest in coaching.
Ah, right, okay, that's excellent.
And helping out with rest or even shelters will come to that, yeah.
Yeah, I think many of the athlete ambassadors have said they want to go into coaching, and I think you have skills because you understand the learning process, because you've had to go through it. That I think you're very good coaches from what I can gather. So you would like to be a coach. Do you see yourself being quite independent in the future? Do you have any thoughts for that?
Well, independent before, but with the help of being an ambassador and the skills I've gained from doing that, I think even more independent now.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right, and perhaps some of these skills might even support you in employment.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we've heard a little bit about Robert and his hopes and thoughts for the future, and again some really poignant, strong messages, Robert. I thank you for your honesty about Robert moving forward and the impact that his sport has made on his voice and laterally the actual project. So I think again, for your own reflection, was there anything about Robert's story that you thought was surprising? Is there anything perhaps that you didn't know but you will be much aware of now? So let's go back to that change one thing pledge. And again, I think what's impressed you most about the athlete's story? And I think for Robert, it might be interesting if you have any comments on that to pop them in at the end of this webinar, and we can have a look at them and perhaps respond to them. Okay, I think what we found with Robert's story is that communication is absolutely key. So for Robert, he can do pretty much anything he wants to do, but it's all about communication with him. So how do we transfer information? How do we give information to each other? And we know that it isn't necessarily about written or listening skills. Robert, if you were to learn something new, what is the most helpful way for you to learn something? Is it to hear it? Is it to be shown it in writing? Or is it to do it?
I think, for me personally, I think the easiest thing for me would to be shown it, and then like after a certain enough, when I get to a point where I've seen enough, I think for me to do it myself.
Yeah, and I think we all know that sometimes to be shown something and then to try it yourself is actually the best way to learn. And if you remember that a learning disability, these athletes struggle perhaps to take in written or verbal information and to process it, then we can see that showing and doing, I think, is absolutely key in all this. Every single one of you will take information in differently. Some of you will be very visual learners, some of you will be very kinesthetic learners, the doing part of it, and some of you will perhaps like to read your information. So when we are working with people, whoever it is, we need to tailor our own delivery styles to suit the needs of the learners. Another key thing, especially with our athletes with a learning disability, is an interpretation. Making sure for you, Robert, that when someone says something to you, that you have picked up exactly what they've said, rather than thought perhaps it means something else. So I think again about making sure that the people that we're working with have understood and interpreted the information absolutely correctly. So I think, again, for us, communication is about giving information, but it's also about receiving information back so you can decide how to give the next bit of information out. And these skills, I think, hold good in any situation that we're in. So we're going to have a bit of fun now. You're going to see a couple of exercises coming up on the screen, which might challenge some of the ways that you think you learn and how you process information. First of all, Robert has a statement to make about communication. And I think, Robert, you've written one thing down. You've written one word down on your piece of paper about what people watching this should remember when communicating with people with a learning disability.
Yeah, that one word would be patience, because, as I said before, when you're somebody with a learning disability, it would take them maybe a bit longer to understand or keep up.
Yeah. What happens to you if you don't have patience? If people aren't patient with you, what is that effect on you?
Sometimes it can have a negative thought, like, what do I have to do and I think, what do I have to do to keep up?
Yes.
Something like that, yeah.
Yes, so I think we all like to feel that when we're struggling, someone's patient with us. So I think Robert's given you a really strong message, just one word, and that is just to be patient. And you can see on your screen, Robert and Bethany have got their own statements written up. Robert, you will always believe. Why is that important?
I think always believe that you can achieve what you like through, like, positive thoughts.
Yeah. So if someone's patient with you, it allows you to put this statement into practice.
It does, yeah. And positive thought, and also the thought of that. The positive thought can also lead to a positive outcome.
I think that's an absolutely key statement. You're absolutely right, because we all know that our thoughts can lead to actions, and if our thoughts are positive, then yes, positive outcomes. And you'll see Bethany there, if you believe you can achieve. So strong messages from our athletes ambassadors there, about communication and about supporting them. Okay, it's now your turn. We're going to have a bit of fun. On the screen, you can see mixtures of words in different colours. What I want to do, I'm going to give you a minute just to say out loud to yourself, depending on where you are or into your head. Just say the words. Forget the colours, but just say the words that you see on the screen. I'll give you a minute just to do that. Okay, now I'm assuming, rightly I hope, that was fairly easy for you. What I want you to do now is to look at the word but read the colour. So for example, in the top left corner, when you look at yellow, I want you to say green. When you look at blue, I want you to say red. So I might give you slightly longer just to do that one. So start to say the words but in the colour that they're written in. Okay, I hope I've given you enough time to do that. And again, from previous workshops that Robert and I have been involved in face-to-face workshops, we have generally found that people find this one a lot harder. And again, if you've got any comments, please pop your comments in and we can have a look at that. The reason it's harder is that our brain is trained to say that when we say red, the colour red comes into our head. When we say orange, the colour orange comes in. So when you're faced with saying yellow, but you have to say a different colour, then our brain struggles with that. So the purpose of this activity is to show you that when you're asked to do something that your brain isn't quite able to process, then first of all, it takes you a little bit longer. You get there in the end, I'm absolutely certain, but it takes you a little bit longer. But also, I hope that I allowed you plenty of time to do that. Because, again, if you remember what Robert said about patience, if I hadn't given you long enough and I was saying, come on, have you not got it yet? Come on. Then how would you feel? Do you think you would achieve it? Do you think that you would feel confident in your ability to do it? So again, it's a very practical example for you to have a shot at something that perhaps some of our athletes with a learning disability struggle with day in, day out. Just dealing with situations that are thrown at them that aren't quite how they think it should be. So it's a good fun exercise, and you can try it out on some of your colleagues or at home and see how they get on with it. Okay, we're going to challenge you again. Now, when we've done this in practice, people have held paper up to mirrors, turned it upside down, so it doesn't make any difference, and you can't do that anyway. I'm going to give you 2 or 3 minutes just to see if you can make sense of what is written in front of you and then actually do the task that's stated. So we'll give you a little bit of time and then we'll come back to you. Okay, I'm hoping that some of you are getting there by now. We'll give you just a little bit longer. Are you confident of reading that though? Are you confident of reading that? Okay, whilst you might still be doing it, Robert and I are going to have a bit of fun, and we're going to try and read this as well. We were lucky, we had a little practice earlier on, but for those of you that I'm absolutely certain you all got there in the end, or you are getting there. But just to put you out your misery if you were struggling, Robert and I are going to have a bit of fun at reading this as well. So, are you able to start, Robert?
Yeah.
Okay, on you go.
On a blank piece of paper, write your name in capital letters on the top right hand corner.
Okay, brilliant. What's the next sentence? I think draw
a big circle in the middle of the paper.
Great. And what about the next one? I think.
It's the bit I'm still struggling with the first letter.
I think, yeah, we struggled with the first letter as well. I think we decided it was inside.
It's inside the circle. Write down some of your...
Yeah, that was a difficult one. Thoughts. and
and
comments.
comments from today's workshop so far.
Yeah, and then what was the last one?
Hope you enjoy the rest of the workshop.
Well done. So Robert's given you all the answers there. And I'm sure once you looked at it, and I think, Robert, once we got the hang of how the letters were written, we actually managed it, didn't we? But we've done this exercise before, and even for us, it's still quite difficult at first glance to be able to read it. So I think, again, the key message from this is when you're faced with information and you look at it and it doesn't make sense, then you need a bit of time to process it. And again, how would you feel if I'd been telling you to hurry up or hadn't given you enough time to actually carry out the instructions? So for athletes with a learning disability, they face these challenges every day. So again, it's about us making sure that we give people time and that we get our communication right. We're going to give you one last exercise to do. You're not allowed to write anything down. I'm going to give you quite a few facts in a short space of time. So I just want you to listen, and then I'm going to give you a minute to see how many facts you can remember, and then I think it would be really interesting for us at the end to get feedback on what you think about this. So no writing, I'll trust you all, and just listen. Get the number 16 bus from the bus stop on the other side of the road. I want you to stay on the bus until you get to Robertson Street. That's about 5 stops. When you get off at Robertson Street, I want you to turn right, walk up to the pedestrian crossing and cross over to the other side. Turn right again and look for a street called Granville Street. There, at number 5 Granville Street, you will see a plate saying Smith & Sons. Go into this building and I want you to ask for a Mr. Carter. When you find Mr. Carter, give the package to him, but he must sign for it, and then come back out and just catch the bus back. That was it. Just have a think, how many of those facts can you actually remember, and then give us your feedback at the end. The reason for doing that is that there was a lot of information in a very quick space of time, and also you weren't allowed any things to help you remember it. So, how difficult was it for you? How challenging? Have a think about working with people with learning disability and how challenging they might find that. And again, can you alter your practice to help and support them? Okay, you can see on your screen now a call to action. We want you to change one thing. So, again, you should have a change one thing poster sent to you in an email. Take a selfie with the poster and email that to engage@uksportsassociation.org or tweet it to @UKSAPLD. We're not looking for a pledge yet. What we want you to do is just think about it, and you can see some pictures of all the other people that have agreed to change one thing. What will then happen is the My Sport, My Voice team at UKSA will get in touch with you and help you turn that pledge into action. And we've had some amazing responses so far of changing one thing and what a difference that's made. Now, Robert, I think you had a statement about change one thing that you wanted to read out to the audience. That's it.
Yeah. Well, you heard what I had to say, some of the things I had to say earlier on, and if you can make one simple change, then that one simple change can make a really big impact in learning disability, and that could be something like the way you see a learning disability, or you know somebody who has, and you can communicate and talk with them on their level that they can understand better.
I'm not sure that I could have put it any better myself, to be honest. I think Robert's given you a really strong message there to go away with. Simple things, doesn't take a lot just to think slightly differently, and as Robert has said, the impacts can be absolutely huge. Okay, coming up on the screen you will see further information. So if you want further information on the My Sport My Voice project, then you have contact details there. We have partners that we work with as well, and you will see the 4 Home Nations Disability Sports Federations there, as well as Tactic Council, and a huge big thanks to the funders that have made this possible, which is Spirit of 2012. What we'll do now, that's the end of the actual webinar, but what we will do now is take questions and comments, and Robert and I will ask them jointly. So just going to wait and see what comes through now. You have about half an hour if you would like to post any questions.
So we received a question earlier from, I think it's Anna Paz. How old was Robert when he started in his chosen sport?
Wait, funny, we had a chat about that in the car coming here, didn't we? I asked you how old you were when you started.
I was about 12 when I started.
And I'm sure Robert won't mind me saying, how old are you now, Robert?
24 now.
24. So 12 years, and I knew Robert when he first came to the club, and the difference between that young boy that came and the young man that's sitting next to you now is amazing. His confidence, his abilities and his skills all through sport and the project are just amazing, Robert. So I think you have to be congratulated for how far you have come in that space of time.
So Sue Stockman has asked, how can people with learning disability that aren't at the elite standard get engaged with sport?
Okay, I think that's an interesting one. Robert wasn't at the elite standard, were you, Robert, when you started?
No, I was at the disability to begin with.
Yeah, so Robert started at the very beginning. So Sue, I think what you see on your screen, the very last one, I'm assuming you're in Northern Ireland, but whatever home country you're in, then you will see that home country disability sports organisation up there. So Disability Sport Northern Ireland, English Federation of Disability Sport, Scottish Disability Sport and Disability Sport Wales. If you get in touch with these organisations then, or the one that's relevant to you, they should have a list of clubs in their area that they know will provide inclusive opportunities for people with a learning disability. It might be a mainstream organisation that has a particular interest in including people with disabilities, or it might be a club like the one Robert joined, Red Star, which was set up specifically for people with disability, and then Robert was moved through into a mainstream club. So I hope that helps. So get in touch with your local disability sport organisation, but also get in touch with UK Sports Association for people with learning disability as well, and they should be able to signpost you. So I hope that helps.
So we've got a double question here from Ray Sweeney. What would Robert's top tips be for a coach, and what would they be for an athlete?
Okay, we're assuming, Robert, that top tips for a coach, we will make the assumption that that is in terms of giving information and communicating. So Robert, as a coach working with you, or you becoming a coach, what is important?
I think for me, like learn to communicate and to coach an athlete or person with a disability. That would be a big factor. And I think if the athlete when the athlete with the disability knows that they're doing that, that's a big help to the coach themselves, and the athlete will perform and do their absolute best for the coach as well, I think.
Yeah, and what is it about the coaches with you? I think you've alluded to this already. You know, in terms of top tips, what if a coach is working with an athlete with a learning disability? What should they be aware of?
Well, first they should be aware that they have it, that they actually have it first, and then It's just a question of like some coaches that be used to like maybe talking fast or demonstrating equipment fast. But when it comes to somebody with a learning difficulties, they should maybe learn to do it slower, like maybe even a lot slower, and maybe different choice of words and simpler words.
I think that's such a good point, your choice of words. I think simpler words, that is absolutely key. And another thing, Robert, I think, I don't know if you would agree, is it to repeat lots of times, to go over things?
I think I do. Like repeat to the athlete. Well, get the athlete to the coach. Like, sorry, to tell the athlete to the coach to repeat to them as many times that is necessary for them to understand certain points. And once they've done that, once they do that, it's just a question of moving forward.
I think from what Robert said, what I'm picking up is about the coach being aware of repeating to the athlete, but asking the athlete to repeat back so they learn.
And also the coach would have to ask questions as well. Like, it could be anything like, you okay with this? Do you want me to go over it with you again?
Yes. So I think that's good that the coach is looking for feedback from the athlete. How important is it? So we'll go to the second part of Robert's question about the athlete now. So we'll make an assumption that this is about an athlete with a learning disability and their coach. So Robert, how is it important for you as an athlete to feel that the coach will listen to you and has understood you?
Well, because athletes with a disability, they can ask their coach to, like I said in the previous question, they can still ask their coach to repeat certain points of anything over and over, and like make their opinions be heard, and it makes it easier, because if they don't, because the coach wouldn't know.
And how important, what does a coach have to do to make you feel able to ask questions, so that you're not worried about asking a question?
Like getting the coach to ask the athlete if they have any questions, and then makes it easier for them.
Yeah, so I think from what Robert said, it's the coach building that environment where the athlete feels it's okay to ask a question, and that they're not going to feel that they're being stupid by asking the question.
Make them feel like that they're not being silly or stupid, like you said, just important,
So Robert, I hope that's helped and answered your question.
So we have another one from Gary. How difficult was it finding somewhere to train that understands your needs?
Okay. So you didn't know about Red Star. If you tell us a wee bit about how you found out about Red Star.
One of my school friends was a member of Red Star before me, and he recommended Red Star to me, asking me if I wanted to try it out, and that which I did.
I'm going to ask a question which I think will help Gary's question. Would you have gone straight into the mainstream club Shettleston Harriers? Would you have just looked for a mainstream club? What was it about that environment that helped you?
In the disability?
Yeah.
I think because I was surrounded by people who had the same thing as me, and that was a big help to begin with. And they all have the same needs, and easier to communicate, and as a result, you've made a lot of friends there.
Yeah. I think the other important message to get across is that if Red Star didn't exist, Robert, and you wanted to run, but Shettleston Harriers, which we know is a mainstream club, was the only club available, for you to have gone there first, what would have needed to have happened in that club?
I think that I would have wanted them to be aware that I've got autism, and that way they would have been aware, and maybe work out some training methods that would have been suitable for me at the time.
Yes, I think that's a really good point, because we don't always have access to disability sport-specific clubs, and that if people with a learning disability are going to join mainstream clubs, then as you can see, Robert's quite happy in his mainstream club now, but it's important that that right environment is created. And I think that's about education. And again, Gary, I think it's about, if you're interested in getting involved, it's about getting in touch with your local home country disability sports organisation and seeing if they offer perhaps any training courses or can give a club some advice on how to include people really with any disability. So we hope that's helped.
And this one's not so much a question, but referring to the coloured words that activity that we did. So Ray said that they use that with people with learning difficulty already. They use coloured wristbands, and sometimes even use it with their mainstream team, I think it is. It's a way that they coach people and get them to touch the same colour bands the coach is wearing. And yeah, I just thought it was quite interesting that it's an activity that's already being used by some of our attendees, which is great.
Yeah, I think that is great. And I think, again, we, Robert and I, hopefully we've got the message across that sometimes providing information in verbal or written isn't sometimes the best way for people with learning disability. So to use very simple colour coding actually helps everybody, because don't forget there's people out there that without a learning disability that might still struggle with literacy. So simple things, colour coding, Robert, that gets the message across and the information doesn't actually have to be processed. So I think that's great. Thanks for that tip, Ray.
Oh, actually, so Ray sent through a follow-up comment to say it also means that we don't have to say left and right.
Ah.
You can use the colours instead, which is a great adaptation.
Yeah.
And we also use paper on the walls, coloured so that the athletes know which way to run, which is, I just think that is just a really fascinating adaptation for coaching people. It's great.
I'm absolutely certain all of you out there are doing the right things and actually doing all this quite naturally. I hope what this workshop does is reaffirm that actually, we are on the right road.
Cool. So that's all the questions that I got so far. If anyone has any more questions, please send them through. What we might do in the meantime is I can pull up that video so that we can see Bethany.
Okay, if you give us a minute, we'll do that. And in the meantime, feel free to send your questions through. You think you've got it now?
Yeah. Hopefully it works. Great.
For all of you listening, I'm glad Amber's here because technology is over and above for what I can do. Oh, good.
I will try and pull that one up. Go on. Oh. Don't need to see
No,
that.
no, I don't think we need to see that.
Ray Sweeney would like to know about classification for our competitions and Festival of Martial Arts. We've recently signed agreements with 4 international martial arts federations to assist them in the creating of participation and competition pathways.
Okay, for those of you that are interested in classification, it exists mainly at the top level of sport for grouping athletes with different disabilities to make fair competitions. So if you ever watch the Paralympics in the different sports, you'll see numbers perhaps when the athlete's name comes up. Athletes with a learning disability are classed as T20, and that is one group, and they have to go through a classification process to be assessed to the impact of their learning disability on their sport. I know martial arts classifies people according to weight anyway, so that would be one way of doing it. But I think what I would suggest that you do is that you get in touch with the UK Sports Association for People with Learning Disability, which is also the classification arm of elite LD sport within Great Britain, and perhaps they can advise, because I know Taekwondo are also looking at some sort of system as well. So you should have that contact, and what I would suggest is that you get in touch with them. But the purpose is to create equal and fair competition.
I hope that's helpful, Ray, and now we'll try the video and see how we go. So just to reiterate that Bethany couldn't be with us today because she is training really hard to be in
Paralympics
Rio.
In Rio, I think she's been selected, yeah.
And so we're very pleased for her. Hopefully this will work and you'll all be able to hear from her yourself. If not, I will send through the link because it's actually a really great little video.
It's looking good.
My favorite sporting memory is winning the gold at London. It was the first time
Yeah. Okay, well, I will send through the link because it is great, and it would be better for you to watch it in one fell swoop than to watch it like this. Sorry, all. So we haven't received any more questions, so I think that's
Okay. Well, good. I think Robert, have you got anything just to finish off with?
Just say bye for now.
Yeah, and I think thank you everybody for listening. I hope that you have enjoyed it. It's certainly been a good fun experience for us. Sorry for the technical glitches. And moving forward, you have got contacts. You're not out there on your own. And look forward to maybe meeting or speaking to all of you again. Thank you.